Now, between 2008 to 2023, we owned 4 homes in California. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Andrew Adventure. And what an adventure it is. I am yours truly, Dr. Ben Andrew. There's some things to talk about. Shout out to all of the military veterans out there, those who have served in whatever branch. Shout out to you. This video is for you. Now, because veterans will always be a trending topic, there should always be some positive press out there about us. So please like, subscribe, share this video so that many will hear what I'm about to say regarding us military veterans. So let's get to it. Let's talk life after the military. For myself, life after the Navy. I'm going to give you some key insights, things I've learned to appreciate, and also some things I had to abandon in order for me to be successful in the civilian sector. Just a little bit of history about myself. I joined the U.S. Navy at 17 years old, fresh out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Oh yeah, 17. I am now 40. I left the military in 2011 after spending a good 9.5 years. Great times. Been all around the world, 3 deployments, been to Hong Kong, Rio de Janeiro, Peru, Chile, Singapore, Malaysia, all over Hawaii, Australia, Dubai, Bahrain. Honestly, so many places I've forgotten, but been everywhere. Had a great time, met some amazing people, and it's where I honed a lot of my leadership and camaraderie. When I left the military, I was an E6 first class petty officer. I made E6 in about 6 years while on shore duty. Family had some other plans, and the Navy wasn't able to accommodate those plans. So I tell people the best decision I made was joining the Navy, and the best decision I made was getting out. I left at the top of my game. I was the sailor of the year. I was sailor of the quarter like 4 times before that. Just a great Navy career. Great. While in ranks, I was able to achieve my first master's degree. And when I left the Navy, that is when I went for my second master's degree, an MBA. That launched me into my doctoral program. Earned my doctorate from Grand Canyon University. And guess what I studied for that doctorate? Veterans. My topic, exploring military veterans and motion management experiences while transitioning to the civilian workforce. Whew. I decided to study that topic because it was something that was prevalent, not just in my life. It was a lived experience, of course, but many of my colleagues were having trouble transitioning. I always will have a special place in my heart for veterans because that's where we come from. Myself and my wife is also a veteran. In fact, my most recent assignment, Chief of Safety and Emergency Management at the VA Medical Center, Philadelphia, I joined that because I had an opportunity to serve veterans. So let's get to it. 2011 was an interesting year. There was so much fear and anxiety surrounding getting out of the Navy that I think it almost crippled me. And some would call it paralysis by overanalysis. I didn't know what to expect with getting out of the military. And frankly, I was just nervous. I had no concept of what I was going to do. My job at the particular time, while on terminal leave, I was still connected to the Navy. I was working on a Navy base doing DD-214s, and I knew that I didn't want to do any admin work for the rest of my civilian life. So I had to really tap into some skill sets that I've learned, and I started pursuing safety jobs, occupational health and safety. I'm talking accident investigations, the prevention of injuries, hierarchy of control. And I chose the safety field because while leaving the military, one thing I was truly concerned about was the well-being of my sailors, those who I had cared for, the E4, 5s, and I had a few E6s as well. I was always passionate about ensuring that those who reported to me And those who I led were good. That care even extended to, my fellow shipmates, those who served on board the ship with me. Shout out to the USS Ronald Reagan, CBN 76. I'm a plank owner. You don't know what that is? Just, all right. While being on the ship, I was passionate about damage control. I was passionate about not having my sailors hurt themselves. So I said, I think that that's something I can get into. And I started applying for safety jobs. In New Orleans, there's a NASA facility called Misused Assembly Facility. And there was a job open for a safety specialist, and I went for it. I put my resume together, and now that I look back at that resume, there were all kinds of acronyms, and I did not have any idea of translating my resume. So if you are transitioning out of the military, learn to translate your resume so that those who are on the other side of that resume would understand. All of the acronyms, they won't sell well. I was fortunate because the person who reviewed the resume, he was also a military veteran, and he was also the hiring manager. He was in the Air Force. And when I went into the interview panel, I can remember there was about 8, 9 people in there. Everyone asked a question. And I am sitting in the chair at attention because that's all I know. All I knew at that point was military bearing. And he happened to be the person right next to me. And he says, I see that you still have some growing to do in terms of being a civilian. And I'm looking at him like, what do you know? Little did I know, he was in the Air Force for about 20 years and he had retired. And he saw, and I'm thankful, shout out to Mr. Dave Howitt. I'm thankful he gave me an opportunity. It took a veteran to give another veteran an opportunity. Certainly, I was speaking to what I knew, and I knew safety. I knew being a leader. I knew what customer service was. I knew how to prevent hazards, but there was so much more that I didn't know. And I'm glad I had some great mentors to help cultivate that. Those individuals at the Misused Assembly Facility, they really took me under their wing. Some of them were veterans, some were not, but we had a great team. And that's one thing I'm grateful for. Team. As a military veteran, you have an understanding of teamwork like no other. You have an understanding of camaraderie, of cohesion like no other. The stuff that we develop just naturally being in ranks and in uniform, you can't teach that. It has to be born through what you understand and what you know to be true in serving your nation. It has to be born there. The attention to detail, you can see it in the book and read it, but it truly takes time to hone that skill set of having attention to detail. If there are two things that you should include in your resume as a veteran, teamwork, attention to detail. Those are two qualities that you have. Whenever you get down and out, feeling like you don't fit in, too difficult to find jobs, go back to a lot of those soft skills that we've learned, those skills that can't be taught truly, those skills that are inherent with serving, and translate that. And you should be able to speak to that on your interviews. You should be able to speak to that because you lived it and it's with you, even if you have that DD 214 in hand, it's with you. So I learned a lot down there on the NASA facility as a safety professional, a growing, blooming safety professional. I learned a lot about people. I also learned a lot about myself. I learned that this transition from the military to the civilian workforce, it's not just a one and done thing. It takes time. I think even right now, I'm still transitioning, and I got out of the military in 2011. It's 2025 right now. There's a lot of behaviors that just stick with us. One behavior in particular, waking up very early. Waking up early is the bread and butter of all branches. It's something that we do. We have to muster, we have to get ready. We don't just have to wake up and go to work, but you have to be ready, uniform, clean. That's how I learned. And that has stuck with me. And I find myself even on the weekends Look, I'm planning to be up about 5, 6 in the morning, ready to work out, ready to get active. And that just, it stuck with me. What I've learned is that I shouldn't expect that from everybody. So it's just something that stuck with me. In the midst of all of this, raising a family as a civilian now, I had to make some decisions. I had to make some changes that I'll tell you about. My primary reason for getting out of the military, the wife and I, we just had number two, and he was very young. And having two boys as an African American in America, I could not fathom leaving, going on deployment, and leaving them here just with my wife. Couldn't fathom it. Salute to everyone who done it and who are doing it. Me, I couldn't do it because one of my goals is to be an active father. In fact, I'll take that back. One of my purposes in life is to be an active father. I grew up, I didn't have an active father in the home. So to be the best dad I never had, that's one of my goals. And that was one of the reasons I decided to get out of the military. That was the primary reason. As a veteran, I would say to be careful with what you put your family through. And the reason for this is you were in the military, they were not. And now that you're out of the military, some of your behaviors are still in ranks. You want to learn to give your family that relief because you're no longer in this rigid environment, but you want to give your family some type of relief. For example, I look back and I see that I had some rigid expectation of my sailors. That's because I wanted them to be the best. I wanted them to do the best. So those expectations were elevated, and my leadership had high expectations of me. I recognize that a lot of times I am doing the same with my children, even with cleaning the rooms and so on. And I have to take a step back. A lot of your journey as a veteran is going to be self reflection. If you're going to improve and get better, self reflection is key. Yes, there are some qualities that we want to continue on, but there are some qualities a little too much. Now, you run your house how you run your house, but consider the fact that there's a certain behavior that can interfere with compassion and the kindness and the love that our children need from us, even as disciplinarians. They need this to develop, but our disciplinarian element could interfere with that. And you don't want that to block out the fact that you love them. There's a such thing called tough love, but sometimes it's just tough and it don't feel like love to them. There's also some adjustments you have to make at work, especially if you are in leadership. How you talk to people, how you regard those who you supervise, how you regard those whom you work with. Not everyone was in the military. You got to learn to look within and see if you are communicating and interacting in a way that's fit for the culture. I was blessed to have some veterans on my team, and I can say, hey, man, take care of this business. What's wrong with you? And it's all good because we have an understanding, and they hold me accountable the same exact way. I know I cannot address or regard someone who wasn't in the military like, what's wrong with you? Nah, it's not going to work. That's HR. That's offensive. It's just a different culture that we have. A lot of the jousting that we do across branches. I had a army person that I worked with. Oh man, for the Navy and Army game, you'd think that we were sworn enemies, but it was all love, all camaraderie. Shout out to my brothers out there and my sisters from the Army. And you don't want to abandon that hard work ethic and that skill set to get things done. You don't want to abandon that. There was one moment when I joined a new company and getting on there, I'm the supervisor. One of the colleagues there, he was a military veteran, Navy to be exact. He pulled me aside and he said, "Hey Ben, you got to slow down, man. It's you're going a little bit too fast here. You're doing a little bit too much. You're gonna make everyone look bad and this and this." And I'm sitting there like, "What? We got to what?" This is about excellence. Got to get this done. Now, that's another thing you have to watch with competitiveness in ranks in the Navy. I don't know about the other branches, but we competed a lot. Our evals were ranked. You're number one out of such and such. Number two, I was number one. I not to brag, but hey, I was I was number one. It was very competitive. You wanted to have the best of the best, and you wanted to be the best of the best, if that was your thing. And that was certainly my thing. Becoming a civilian, I had to learn more about teamwork, and I'm not in competition with my peers. Our competition is helping our company and our organization to be better than yesterday, serving the customers, and whatever that mission is, making that a reality. So I talked a lot about work, but I will leave you with this. There were some decisions my wife and I had to make as parents that challenged our fundamental understanding of what family is. We were living out in Southern California, and any family members who came to visit us would have to come via plane because our nearest relative was probably Texas. I'm from New Orleans, she's from Delaware. So everyone had to come via plane, and we'd have to fly to go. We didn't have any blood relatives. Had some great friends, great church family, but we didn't have any blood relatives. And our children didn't have any relationship with their cousins, their aunts. They didn't know them because we remained in California post Navy. After having our first daughter, we have three boys, and baby girls born, I realized something. My kids need to be closer to grandmom because time is of the essence. They've already lost my mother. They needed to be closer. And I looked at the landscape of life and what we were doing, and we were really on this military duty station type time. We were really living as if we were stationed out in California. Now, between 2008 to 2023, we owned four homes in California: Spring Valley, Lake Elsinore, Murrieta, and Menifee. Four homes. We were living as if we were stationed at these different places, recognizing that family was everything, and my family needed to be closer to family. Our family needed to be closer to family. We made the decision to move to Delaware to get closer to family. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. I hope that as a veteran, you were able to take something from what I said and use it to encourage yourself and push forward into greater plateaus. You can do it. You're amazing. You served. Not a lot of people can say they've served. If you served honorably, especially, you served. Thank you for your service. Take care.